Snaking through the Canadian wilds between the cities of Prince Rupert and Prince George, the road known as Highway 16 crosses British Columbia, the westernmost Canadian territory, as it travels from the mountainous interior to the coast. Despite its picturesque scenery and stunning landscapes, Highway 16 harbours a dark and terrifying secret. In today's episode, we will be looking into the Highway of Tears. In all, this road stretches for almost 450 miles, or 725 kilometers, across Canadian territory, and it has become famous for an apparent macabre truth. For at least 50 years, women have been disappearing along this road. Highway 16 is also known as the Highway of Tears. Although official sources suggest that the number of victims is around 20, the actual number could easily be twice that, and some estimates suggest that as many as 600 women may have been killed. The highway covers a major industrial route from Prince Rupert to the city of Prince George in British Columbia, and a lot of people use the road. The remains of many victims have been discovered, while many other cases of missing women remain unsolved even to this day. Many of the victims of the Highway of Tears are Indigenous women and girls. What is happening on this stretch of road, and who is killing these women? What is the Highway of Tears? It seems that the usual culprits are at least partially to blame for these deaths. Many of the women who disappeared were sex workers, vulnerable to predators. Many people who are not local and would not be recognized easily use the road, and large stretches of the route are deserted. With around 23 First Nations locales in the vicinity of Highway 16, the Indigenous communities have experienced the most devastating losses. On the contrary, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or RCMP, downplayed the number of murders and disappearances, suggesting that only 18 people were killed over the years between 1969 and 2006. However, Indigenous groups have argued that the number of victims had been restricted to specific locations near the highway. On the other hand, an international non-governmental organisation, Human Rights Watch, verified that British Columbia registered the highest number of unsolved murders of Indigenous women in Canada. The RCMP started off its investigations into the murders and disappearances in 1981 with the Highway Murders Initiative. However, the streak of murders and disappearances along the Highway of Tears continued unabated, despite the investigation initiatives. Subsequently, the British Columbia RCMP set up Project EPANA in 2005 under their Unsolved Homicide Unit for solving the Highway of Tears cases. The project received the name in reference to the Inuit word for the spirit goddess guiding souls in the afterlife. Have any crimes been solved? The Project EPANA set some momentum in the investigation process and brought forward many common highlights in the cases. Regardless of whether they are included in Project EPANA investigations, the disappearances continued for a long time. The striking highlight of Project EPANA focuses specifically on three important conditions for including cases under investigation. The victims must have been female and involved in high-risk activity, alongside being discovered along Highway 16. Furthermore, Highways 97 and 5 were also included in the scope of the investigation. The story of Jessica Patrick, a victim of the unsolved disappearances on the Highway of Tears, has shown how such incidents traumatize the family members. Upon its launch, Project EPANA was able to identify 9 victims missing or murdered along Highway 16 between 1989 and 2006. The RCMP also included a violent crime linkage analysis system, which helped in identifying more victims. The women who disappear along the Highway of Tears are either found dead or are never found. Amidst the controversies regarding investigation into the cases of murdered or missing victims, there are some positives, and a few of the cases have been solved. For example, Colleen Macmillan left her family home in British Columbia in August 1974 to visit her friend. The remains of Colleen were discovered 1 month after her disappearance, and DNA evidence convicted serial killer Bobby Jack Fowler as the perpetrator of the crime. Similarly, investigations into the murder of Monica Jack, victim at 12 years of age, also revealed the killer as 67-year-old Gary Taylor Handlin. These are the exceptions, however, and many cases of missing murdered women along Highway 16 remain unsolved to this day. A dangerous road. The father of a Highway of Tears victim, Jessica Patrick Mike Balser, harbors many thoughts in his mind about the potential reasons behind the disappearance and murder of his daughter. You would notice many other cases like Jessica, which are still searching for answers. Many experts and local people have pointed out the possible causes for the disappearance of women on Highway 16. The first issue is evident in the lack of transportation for the Indigenous communities living along the highway. Therefore, youngsters from Indigenous communities are more likely to hitchhike to other places to visit their friends and family. Another possible cause for the disappearance of women along Highway 16 refers to the isolated location. People have stated that you can drive for 15 minutes along the highway without coming across another car or individual. On the other hand, the soft soil available on the sides of the highway gives an ideal option for perpetrators to hide their crimes. In addition, you also have the risk of scavengers speeding up the decomposition process, thereby making criminals feel more confident about not getting caught. Some of the family members of the victims have pointed out the negligence of the Canadian federal government and the RCMP. Leaders of Indigenous communities and community patrol groups have expressed anguish over the negligence towards an investigation into death and missing cases involving Indigenous women. The call for justice for all the victims of the Highway of Tears grows louder every day. One would shudder at the mere thought of losing their loved one to such unfortunate circumstances. Families of the victims are garnering strength and support from all fronts to seek justice for their missing family members. Hopefully, with time, more of these cases will be solved. And hopefully, with time, Highway 16 will become safer and no longer be known as the Highway of Tears. This concludes today's episode of the Paranormal Report. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a like and consider subscribing to our channel. It is your continued viewership and support that makes it possible for us to continue bringing you interesting and informative videos like this. The team here at the Paranormal Report really appreciates your support.